Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. In this episode, I'm breaking down my complete Western hunting strategy for 2026, from elk hunting applications and mule deer tag strategy to building a year-round hunting fitness plan. This is the blueprint I use to improve my odds of success on public land. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I plan an entire Western hunting year, from the first application decision all the way through the end. Most hunters plan a hunt. They plan a week off work, they plan a gear list, but they don't plan a year. And that is why so many seasons feel rushed, chaotic, and disappointing. The truth is that the hunt you have in September or October is usually decided many months earlier by the choices you made when nobody was watching. It's decided by what you applied for, what you committed to, what you trained for, what you scouted, and how honest you were about your limits. In this episode, I'm going to lay out a complete framework you can use every single year so you're not just guessing or scrambling or burning yourself out. If you are a DIY public land or mule deer hunter who wants more consistency, more control, and more confidence, this episode is for you because it connects the entire process into one system instead of a bunch of random efforts. Now, let's start with the mindset that holds this whole thing together. Most hunters think the year begins when the season opens. They think everything before that is just preparation, and preparation feels optional. Then season arrives and the mountain exposes every weak link at the same time. You're behind on conditioning, so you avoid hard climbs. You don't understand the unit well enough, so you bounce around. You brought too much gear, so you waste time packing and repacking. You did not plan recovery, so you crash mentally on day 3 and start making emotional decisions. Then you go home, and it feels like the season happened to you instead of you running the season. When I plan a year, I try to flip that mindset. I treat the entire year as the hunt. The season is just the test. The year is the training camp. The year is the rehearsal. The year is where decisions become automatic. When you plan the year, your season becomes simpler because you are no longer trying to build structure while the clock is running. The other mindset shift is that I never let the year depend on one tag or one perfect opportunity. I see hunters do this all the time. They apply for a dream tag, they put all their hope in it, and if they don't draw, the year becomes a throwaway. Or they do draw, and the pressure becomes so high that they hunt tight, make weird decisions, and feel like every moment has to be perfect. Neither one of those scenarios creates consistent improvement. Consistency comes from reps. It comes from time on the mountain. It comes from running a process repeatedly, learning what breaks, fixing it, and then doing it again. So I build a year that guarantees reps, even if nothing goes my way. That means I always have a realistic hunt plan on the calendar that I can actually execute, not a fancy or fantasy plan that depends on luck. Now, let's talk about applications and tag strategy because this is where the year truly starts. When I sit down to apply, I don't just start by asking what I want. I start by asking what kind of year I can actually execute well. That question is brutal for some people because it forces you to be honest about time, money, family, work, and your body. But it is the question that prevents you from planning a season you can't complete. I look at a few things. The first is time. How many days can I realistically hunt? Not in my head, but in real life. The next is logistics. How many states? How much travel? How much scouting? And how complicated is the plan? And the last is priority. What is the main hunt I want to build the year around? And what are the supporting hunts that keep the reps coming? Now, here is a hard truth. Most people apply emotionally. They apply because a unit looks good on a forum. They apply because somebody posted a giant bull. They apply because they've been saving points and they feel like they have to cash them in, even if they're not ready. They apply because they're scared of missing out. That is an emotional system, and emotional systems create chaos. I try to apply with structure. I want one anchor hunt that is realistic and meaningful. Then I want at least one backup hunt that guarantees time on the mountain. Then, if it fits the year, I want a third or fourth opportunity that either builds skills or builds confidence, just gives me more time in the field. Everything else is icing on the cake. So here's an example. I'm building around an elk hunt. I want that elk hunt to be the anchor. That might be a draw tag, or some years it might just be an over the counter plan here at home. Then I want a mule deer hunt that fits the calendar, fits the recovery window, and fits the scouting bandwidth. If that deer hunt is a later season that requires a different approach, then I can plan for that. Then I might layer a short hunt that is lower stress and high reps, something that keeps me sharp and keeps my systems tested, not something super stressful. The specific tags can change, but the structure stays the same. The reason I do this is because I don't want my year to be fragile. Fragile plans break, and hunting plans break fast. You get sick, work shifts, weather changes, a tag doesn't come through, a partner bails, your knee acts up. If you plan the year with one thread holding it all together, it's easy to snap. If you plan the year with a system, you can adapt. Now, let's talk about something else that matters in applications: expectations. A lot of guys apply for hunts they are not prepared to execute. They draw a tough tag, they show up undertrained, they don't scout enough, and they think the tag is the problem. The tag is not the problem. The plan was the problem. So when I apply, I also ask, if I draw this, what does it require of me? Now, once applications are in, I move into what I call the season map. This is where I lay the entire year out on a calendar and force reality into the plan. The season map is not complicated, but it is honest. I mark the key dates, application deadlines, result dates, training phases, scouting windows, hunting windows, work blackouts, family commitments, travel time, recovery time. And then I look at it and ask, where are the collisions? Where am I trying to do too much? Where am I pretending I can recover faster than I actually do? Where am I stacking extra stress? Now, let's get into the training phases behind that, because this is where the planning gets real. Most hunters treat training like a switch. They either flip it on way too late in the summer, maybe even some folks in the spring, and they go hard, but they get tired and they limp into season. Then they wonder why their legs are dead, why their feet hurt, why their back is tight, and why they can't think clearly under fatigue. So here is the truth: training is not about how hard you can go, it's about how well you can build durability, capacity, and specificity at the right time. Early in the year, my training phase is rebuild and resilience. I'm rebuilding tissue tolerance. I'm restoring movement. I'm strengthening joints. I'm bringing up weak links. This is where single leg strength matters. This is where step ups, lunges, split squats, and control patterns create stability. This is where your feet and ankles learn to tolerate uneven terrain again. This phase is not exciting, but it is the phase that keeps you hunting when other people quit. This is the base phase. The wider your base, the taller your pyramid can be and remain stable as you reach your peak fitness for the hunt, right? The weaker your base, the skinnier that base, if you're thinking about just doing it in the summer, that's what you rely on, you don't have a potential for a very strong base. If you try to stretch the height of that pyramid out there in hunting season, that's how you break or burn out, or you're just not prepared for what the hunt requires of you. I also use the base phase to rebuild my aerobic base without frying myself. That means low intensity work that builds engine without beating up joints. If you rush into high intensity conditioning too early, you're borrowing from a bank account you haven't built yet. And then later, when you need intensity, you're already tired, burnout, or injured. After the rebuild phase, I move into capacity. Capacity is where you increase volume. This is where I start to layer longer efforts, more climbing, more time under load, and more sport specific movement. But I still manage intensity. I'm not trying to prove how tough I am in April. I'm trying to build a body that can hunt hard in September and still have something left on day 6, day 8, day 10. This is where a lot of hunters get it wrong. They either wait way too late, too close to the season, or they train like they're preparing for a single hard day. Hunting is not one hard day, right? Hunting is repeated hard days. The guy who can do one brutal hike and then needs 2 days to recover is not ready for elk season. The guy who can do hard work and wake up ready to do it again and again and again, he's ready. Then I move into specificity. Specificity is where training looks like hunting. Pack weight starts to match reality. Terrain work becomes more targeted. Step ups become longer. I start practicing the exact type of effort I will do in the season, including the pacing and the recovery. This is also where I start practicing mental discipline under fatigue because fatigue changes your decisions. Here's what fatigue does: it makes you impatient, it makes you sloppy, it makes you accept easier terrain, it makes you avoid long loops, it makes you glass less, it makes you cut corners. So in this phase, I train to maintain discipline under fatigue, not just produce output. Then as season approaches, I shift into sharpening and tapering. This is where a lot of guys sabotage themselves because they panic. Maybe they waited too late. They feel like they are running out of time, so they do too much. They crush themselves in August and they arrive at season already depleted. You don't want to arrive at season already exhausted. You want to arrive at season sharp and hungry. So I reduce volume, keep intensity in controlled doses, and prioritize recovery. I want my joints to feel good. I want my sleep to be solid. I want my feet to be ready. I want to feel confident, not tired. This is the training side of planning a year, but training alone doesn't make you consistent, right?
Step into the backcountry and step up your elk hunting game at Elk Camp 2026. This isn't a seminar, it's an immersive experience with real field training alongside successful elk hunters Matt and Saxton Hartsky. You'll learn how elk think and move, break down terrain like a pro, call with confidence, and practice 3 days of real-world elk hunting scenarios that mirror what you'll face on your own hunt. This camp was built to bridge the gap between where you are and where you want to be in the mountains. With limited spots and hands-on coaching, you'll walk away sharper, more prepared, and ready to hunt with purpose and confidence. Elk Camp 2026. Sharpen your edge. Register now and prepare for the season like never before at backboneunlimited.com.
You also need scouting, and scouting is more than just walking around. So let's talk about scouting windows and how I use them. The first scouting window is e-scouting and research. This is where I build the mental model of a unit. I look at access points and I look at how pressure enters. I look at terrain structure. I look at elevation bands. I look at feed and water patterns. I look at likely bedding structure based on slope, timber, shade, and wind. I look at glassing potential. I look at escape routes. I look at where animals can live when people show up. A lot of guys e-scout to find a spot. I try to e-scout to understand an area better. That matters because spots change, conditions change, pressure changes, but terrain structure and animal needs do not change. When you understand the structure, you can adapt. The next scouting window is boots on the ground. And this is where most hunters waste a lot of time. They wander around, they hike random ridges, they look for sign, they find some sign, and they get excited and they assume they've solved it. And that is not scouting. That's kind of hoping, right? When I scout on the ground, I try to go in with questions. I want to confirm what the map suggested. I want to see how pressure actually behaves, not how I imagine it. I want to see where people park, where trails are beat down, where glassing knobs are obvious, and where the quiet routes actually exist. I want to see where water actually is late summer, not where it exists on a map, theoretically. I want to see where feed is and how quickly it's drying out. I want to see the wind behavior in certain basins and timber pockets. I want to see how thermals move in the morning and evening. That type of scouting creates confidence because it removes the fantasy and guessing. It replaces I think with I know. And then there's a third scouting window that people ignore, don't talk about a lot, which is the micro scouting that actually happens during season. Every day you hunt, You're scouting, but you have to treat it that way. You have to capture what you learned. You have to write it down so that you know what you saw later on. You have to know what wind did. You have to know where pressure was. You have to know what time elk moved, even if you didn't get a shot. That data becomes next year's advantage. Now let's talk about gear, logistics, and systems because this is a quiet killer. A lot of hunters think the reason they struggle is tactics, but sometimes the reason they struggle is friction in their tactics, right? Their system is messy. Their pack's a disaster. Their food plan is chaotic. Their sleep system is uncomfortable. Their boots aren't proven. Their layering is wrong. Their optic setup is clunky or too heavy or just not the right setup. So they waste time, they waste energy, and they arrive at decisions already irritated. And that's friction, and friction ruins focus. Focus kills animals. So part of planning a year is building systems that reduce friction. I want my gear to be organized. I want my pack system to be repeatable. I want my kill kit to be identical every time so I'm not thinking about it. I want my navigation system to be clean. I want my glassing system to be fast. I want my food system to support energy, not just random calories. I want my water system to be reliable and focus on my hydration. And I want all this tested before season, not learned during season, because I've done that and it's painful. Here is a practical example. If you do not practice your pack system, you'll overpack. When you overpack, you move slower. When you move slower, you waste morning hours. When you waste morning hours, you arrive late to places you needed to be early. That is not a good tactic. This is all about systems. Another example, if your sleep system is wrong, you don't recover properly. When you don't recover, your patience disappears. When your patience disappears, you move too much. When you move too much, you blow animals you never knew were there. Again, not tactics, systems. Planning the year means I build and test systems early so the season is not a constant equipment problem. Now we need to talk about something a lot of hunters avoid, which is decision making under fatigue and the push versus recovery balance. There are two kinds of pushes in a hunting year. There is a productive push and there's a desperate push. A productive push is planned. It happens when your training base is ready, your recovery is managed, and the effort is aimed at something specific. That might be a scouting trip with a purpose. That might be a training block that builds capacity. That might be an in season push when conditions are right, peak rut, and you have the energy to capitalize on it. A desperate push happens when you didn't plan well and now you're trying to force results. You're trying to make up for lost time. You're trying to squeeze opportunity out of your body and mind that are already depleted. And that push feels heroic, but it is usually reckless. It creates injuries, it creates burnout, it creates bad decisions. So I try to plan pushes and I plan recovery and I treat recovery like a weapon. Recovery is your sleep, your hydration, your mobility work, your nutrition, and your mental reset. It's also restraint. It's saying no to extra miles when extra miles are not the right miles. It's taking a slower morning when you need it so you can hunt hard in the evening. It's not always comfortable because it feels like you're not doing enough. But the hunters who win long seasons are the hunters who can manage their energy like a pro, and that comes down to the recovery. Now, let's talk about in season execution and the weekly reset, because this is where a lot of seasons drift off the rails. Most guys go into season with a plan, and then day one doesn't go the way they thought, and the plan collapses. They start chasing, they start bouncing, they start reacting, and the season becomes a series of emotional decisions. I try to treat season like a campaign. I have a daily framework and a weekly framework. The daily framework is pretty simple. Morning is for movement, listening, being where you need to be before daylight. Midday is either for controlled relocation, controlled stillness, or controlled scouting, depending on what the day taught you. Evening is for being in a position where animals want to move, not where you want them to move. Then night is for recovery and planning. The weekly framework is the reset. Every few days, I zoom out and ask, what is the trends that I'm seeing? What are those trends? Where is pressure increasing? How are thermals behaving? Where am I seeing sign consistently? What have I learned about animal timing? What is my body telling me? What is my mind doing? Am I getting impatient? Am I getting sloppy? Am I forcing things? This is the discipline a lot of hunters don't have or haven't learned yet. They live hour to hour. Consistent hunters live by those trends. Now, let's talk about postseason review and how failures shape the next year, because this is also part that turns one season into many seasons of progress. When a season ends, a lot of hunters either celebrate or sulk. When they move on, the next year, they repeat the same mistakes, and that's why they stay inconsistent. I try to do a review, right? A detailed review. I break it into categories. First, physical. What limited me physically? Was it endurance? Was it durability? Was it feet? Was it knees? Was it recovery? Did I get sore too fast? Did I avoid terrain? Did I lose discipline when I got tired? That tells me exactly how to train the next year. Second review is strategic. Did I understand pressure? Did I commit long enough? Did I bounce too much? Did I glass enough? Did I move too fast? Did I hunt the wrong elevation bands at the wrong times? Did I fail to adjust when conditions changed? That tells me exactly what to study and how to scout the next year. The third area is systems. Did my gear create friction? Did my food plan support energy? Did my sleep system recover me? Did my pack system cost me time? Did my navigation system help or distract? That tells me what to fix before next year. The fourth area to look at is mindset. Did I stay calm? Did I spiral? Did I get impatient? Did I lose confidence? Did I make emotional moves? Did I avoid discomfort? Those kinds of things tell me what mental work I need, and it also tells me what kind of year to plan for next. And here's the biggest point: failures are not proof you are bad. Failures are just data. If you treat them like data, you get better. If you treat them like shame, you quit or you repeat. Now, let's close this out with the practical next steps you can start right now, because the goal of this episode is not inspiration, it's structure so that you can plan better. If you want to plan an entire Western hunting year, start by choosing your anchor hunt and your guaranteed rep hunts, right? Don't let your year depend on luck. Then build a season map on a calendar that includes training phases, scouting windows, and recovery, not just hunt dates. Then build your training into phases, starting with your rebuilding, moving to capacity, moving to specificity, and then sharpening before season. Then build scouting in phases. Start with understanding terrain and pressure, then confirming with boots on the ground, then capturing data during season. Then build systems that reduce friction, so your season is about hunting, not constant equipment problems. Then practice push versus recovery, because energy management is what keeps you sharp deep into seasons. And when the season ends, do a review so the next year is built from truth, not just hoping things get better. Is how you plan a year. That is how you stop repeating the same cycle. That is how you become consistent. Now, if you're serious about taking this kind of structure deeper, that's exactly why I built Team Backbone. It's more than just a membership. It's a way for you to sharpen your edge with exclusive tools, strategies, and a tribe of hunters who refuse to quit. Inside, you're going to get 20% off site wide on all Backbone Unlimited gear. You're going to get a member-only t-shirt shipped to your door every month, not available anywhere else. You'll get full access to the digital content vault, which includes guides, checklists, fitness programming, backcountry strategies, and mindset training. You'll get a private Facebook group with direct access to me and a community of driven hunters who live relentlessly. You'll get direct call, text, or email access to me for personalized advice on training, hunting, strategy, or just sharpening your edge. And you'll get automatic entry into our monthly gear giveaways. This is built for the guys who train for the hunt, push themselves in the off season, and want to be part of a tribe that makes them better. If you're ready for that kind of inner circle, then Team Backbone is waiting for you at backboneunlimited.com under our membership tab. Thanks for being here. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.